Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are literally blowing the dust off some of the oldest archives in human history to piece together the epic texts of a forgotten, pre-flood world. I want you to imagine holding the absolute earliest chronicles of humanity in your hands. We're talking about records documenting a world that feels almost completely alien to our own, yet it's entirely foundational to the human story. We're going to dive into these lost pages exactly as the ancient historians meticulously documented them.
The earth was groaning under the heavy burden of sin. You know, these ancient historical records don't just give us dry dates and names. They paint this incredibly visceral picture of a planet that is literally crying out in pain. But it really makes you wonder, right? How exactly did the world get to that breaking point?
Let's start with part 1, uncovering the lost paradise. So, according to these ancient scribes, humanity started off walking right alongside their creator. No pain, no war, just perfect harmony. But a single whisper of doubt led to a choice that completely shattered the whole shebang. The physical representation of this fallout was stark, a flaming sword placed right at the gates of Eden, forever separating humanity from that initial paradise, and basically pushing them out into a harsh world of pain, bleeding, and heavy labor.
Which brings us to part 2, the rise of civilization.
These chronicles show a truly terrifying acceleration of human history. I mean, by just the second generation, we see the very first recorded murder, Cain killing his brother Abel out of pure jealousy over a rejected sacrifice. Fast forward a bit, and you have people living for hundreds of years, accumulating immense knowledge. By the 7th generation, you've got this guy named Tubal-Cain forging spears and swords from newly discovered metals. It's wild because almost overnight, basic survival morphed into city building, the crowning of kings, and organized, bloody warfare.
The historians' texts highlight a massive societal fracture here. And honestly, it's one we kind of still see in humanity today. On one side, you had a bloodline that chose violent dominance, forging metals and arrogantly boasting of 70-fold revenge. On the other side, the lineage of Seth became a sort of quiet resistance. In a rapidly darkening world, this small remnant actively prayed, preserved the ancient truths of Eden, and absolutely refused to worship the new gods of metal and power.
Now for part 3, the Watchers and Nephilim.
Okay, so this is where the ancient records get really wild. They describe these beings called the Watchers. This was a group of 200 angels who completely abandoned their celestial duties, just absolutely captivated by the beauty of human women. The scribes say they were initially just meant to observe humanity, but desire completely took over. They descended onto the summit of Mount Hermon, forged a dark pact, and swore a holy vow to take human wives, utterly shattering the boundaries between the heavenly and earthly realms. To the humans below, these beings appeared as glowing, majestic gods with voices like quiet thunder.
And the result of that dark pact? The Nephilim. We're talking towering, terrifying giants with an endless appetite. These weren't just tall guys playing ancient basketball. The historians describe them as incredibly powerful, arrogant hybrids who simply didn't age like normal humans. At first, they were revered as famous warriors. They even had statues built in their honor in early tyrannical cities. But soon, their unnatural hunger took over. They turned on the humans, transforming fertile plains into killing fields and demanding a horrific tax of blood.
But the Watchers didn't stop at just breeding monsters. They deliberately went about corrupting humanity by handing over forbidden, highly destructive knowledge. They systematically unraveled human innocence. They shared celestial secrets that humans were literally never meant to have. We're talking how to cast elemental spells, read the stars, mix roots for drugs, and even manipulate genetics to create horrific animal-human hybrids. They taught men the brutal art of mass warfare with iron and taught women the arts of seduction using cosmetics and mirrors. The world wasn't just violent, it was fundamentally polluted at every single level. They basically turned war into an art form and lust into a religion.
Moving on to part 4, Enoch's written warning.
Right in the middle of this absolute chaos, a historian and prophet named Enoch steps up. A descendant of Seth, Enoch stood fiercely against the corrupted masses. While everyone else was obsessing over the Watchers, Enoch had visions that pierced right through the physical realm. He stood in front of mocking crowds and delivered a chilling message. The Most High is watching. Nothing is hidden. Judgment will fall. Enoch actually took the time to meticulously preserve these wild visions. He etched his accounts of celestial portals, heavenly armies, and the coming doom onto physical stone and leather slates. And then
The ancient text literally just says he vanished. He didn't die, he was just taken. But his sudden absence only made the darkness on Earth grow deeper. His warnings were completely, utterly ignored.
And that leads us directly to Part 5, the Great Deluge.
So, according to the archives, the Creator rolled out a highly precise 3-step judgment protocol to surgically cleanse the corrupted earth. Step 1. Dispatch archangels to literally chain the rebellious watchers in the deepest, darkest abyss. Step 2. Completely eradicate the chaotic Nephilim by engaging celestial armies in massive, valley-shaking battles. And Step 3. Purify the earth itself. The planet, stained with innocent blood and dark magic, would undergo a total planetary purification by water.
But there was one honest man left, Noah. He was tasked with preserving life, guided purely by faith. For years, amidst the relentless mockery of city dwellers, Noah built this impossible 3-story wooden fortress out of cypress wood. Think about how crazy that must have looked. He's building a massive ship in a valley that had never even seen rain, while the giant Nephilim continued their tyrannical rule in the cities just over the horizon.
40 days and 40 nights. The scribes describe an absolute unleashing of elemental fury. The earth physically cracked open, shooting massive geysers of deep underground water right into the sky, while the heavens just poured down solid sheets of rain. The altars of the Watchers, the arrogant towers of the Nephilim, the dark magic, all of it was swallowed by the roaring waves. Inside that sealed ark, Noah and his family could only sit and listen to the terrifying sounds of a dying world.
Finally, Part 6, A New World Dawns.
After months of basically drifting over a drowned graveyard of a world, the wooden vessel finally bumps into Mount Ararat and comes to a rest. Imagine the absolute silence. The waters slowly receded, revealing the jagged peaks of submerged mountains. Nowhere released a raven, then a dove, just waiting patiently until that tiny, green olive branch was brought back. It was a profound message. The earth, though deeply scarred, was breathing once again.
As Noah, his family, and the animals finally stepped out onto the damp earth, the very first thing he did was build an altar to give thanks. And in response, a magnificent spectrum of light broke through the lingering clouds. The ancient historian records this rainbow as a binding, eternal contract, a divine guarantee that the earth would never again face a planetary flood as judgment.
The earth was indeed scrubbed clean. The towering giants and corrupted angels were gone. But as Noah looked upon his family beginning again, the historian leaves us with a pretty chilling realization. The external corruption was washed away for sure, but the internal condition, that human capacity for greed, for violence, for turning away from the light, that survived the flood. It was carried right inside the ark itself. So I'll leave you with this. If a planetary flood could only wash the surface of the earth,